Keep moving, for each step brings you closer to freedom. Follow the stars and trust in the kind hearts guiding you. Your courage will light the path ahead. The year is 1810. In the heart of Philadelphia, a small group of determined individuals gathered in the back room of a local Quaker meeting house. They were drawn together by a shared conviction that the institution of slavery was a profound moral wrong, and by a mutual resolve, they chose to act against it. This meeting marked the informal beginnings of what would come to be known as the Underground Railroad, a network that would grow to become one of the most significant resistance movements in American history. At the initial meeting of the Underground Railroad, Isaac T. Hopper, a Quaker abolitionist known for his cunning and compassion, had already assisted several enslaved individuals in their flights to freedom and was deeply moved by their plight and desperate desire for liberty. Beside him sat Sarah Allen, the wife of Richard Allen, founder of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, who brought her deep connections to the free Black community in Philadelphia. As the group conferred quietly under the dim candlelight, they discussed strategies to provide safe passage for escapees from the southern plantations. Their plan was courageous and fraught with danger. They would establish a chain of safe houses stretching from the slaveholding South to the free states of the North. Each station would be a sanctuary, a place where those fleeing slavery could find rest, food, and guidance to the next safe point. So why was it called the Underground Railroad? The term Underground Railroad was coined as a metaphor rather than a literal description to depict the secretive and organized nature of the system. Primarily active between 1810 and the start of the American Civil War in 1861, the Underground Railroad helped enslaved African Americans escape to freedom. There are several aspects to why this metaphor was particularly apt and effective. The people involved in the operation of the Underground Railroad used railroad terminology as a code to maintain secrecy and communicate effectively. For example, safe houses where fugitives could rest were called stations or depots and were run by station masters. At the heart of the operations were conductors who guided the escapees along the routes. The conductors were both Black and white, freemen and enslaved. Notable figures include Harriet Tubman, a former slave who made numerous trips to the South to guide others to freedom, and William Still, a free African American who helped hundreds of enslaved people escape while keeping detailed records that remain a valuable historical resource. The fleeing slaves were often referred to as passengers or cargo as they were riding or being transported by the railroad to their destination. This use of code helped protect the identities and activities of all involved. Much like a real railroad, the Underground Railroad had a complex and well-organized structure comprising various routes and safe houses. At the time, railroads were the embodiment of modern efficiency and connectivity. By using this terminology, those involved in the Underground Railroad communicated the effectiveness and reliability of their secret network. It implied a well-organized, swift, and direct method of transporting people from slavery to freedom. Here is an interesting note. Initially, the activities of helping fugitive slaves were not formally referred to as the Underground Railroad. The term started to be used more widely in the 1830s and 1840s. It is believed that the actual term was first used after an incident in 1831 when Tice Davids, a runaway slave, escaped from Kentucky to Ohio, and his owner blamed an Underground Railroad for helping Davids vanish so effectively. The early operations of the Underground Railroad were primitive and perilous. Communication between conductors was sparse, relying on coded messages and a deep trust in each participant's integrity and secrecy. The routes themselves were not fixed, but constantly altered to evade capture by slave catchers and law enforcement officials who were sympathetic to the Southern cause. One of the earliest known escapees assisted by this network was a young man named Toby. His journey began in a sweltering Virginian field, from which he fled under cover of darkness, driven by whispered tales of a route north where a man could live free. Guided by the North Star, Tobe traveled by night, hiding by day in the thickets and barns offered by his clandestine allies. Tobe's journey was brutal. More than once, he nearly fell into the hands of those who hunted him. But at each critical moment, he was aided by the courage of strangers who risked everything to see him safe. In Philadelphia, under the cover of a stormy night, he was led to the meeting house where Isaac Hopper and his colleagues quietly celebrated his arrival. They provided him with directions to the next station, reminding him to always be moving and always look over his shoulder. The network grew, each success emboldening more to join the cause. It relied heavily on the courage and sacrifice of ordinary people who risked their lives and the safety of their families. Under the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, aiding runaway slaves was illegal, and those caught doing so faced severe penalties, including hefty fines and imprisonment. Even with these unfair acts of suppression, stories of escaped slaves reaching freedom in the North began to spread, sowing seeds of hope among those still enslaved. With each new conductor who joined, with each new station established, the Underground Railroad expanded its reach and efficacy, becoming a symbol of defiance against the brutal institution of slavery. The routes of the Underground Railroad were diverse, spreading across various parts of the United States. Paths often led through challenging terrains, including swamps and mountains, to evade capture. The most common destination points in the North included Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana. From there, many fugitives continued onward to Canada, where slavery had been abolished. This burgeoning network did not only offer a pathway to freedom, it also fostered a profound transformation in American society. The impact was substantial, though estimating the exact number of escapees is challenging due to its secretive nature. Historians believe that thousands of slaves escaped to freedom through this network. Beyond the immediate effect of helping individuals escape slavery, the Underground Railroad fueled a broader abolitionist movement, inspiring both political and public opinion shifts that were crucial in the lead-up to the Civil War. It brought together people across racial and socio-economic lines in a shared mission of human liberation. The Underground Railroad was a mosaic of bravery, an alliance cemented by the collective aspiration for freedom and equality. Thus, from its humble beginnings in a Quaker meeting house, the Underground Railroad grew into a formidable force in the antebellum United States, altering the lives of thousands and weaving a legacy of resistance and resilience that would forever resonate in the annals of American history.